First of all, to define evil, because the subject is who is more evil, Hitler or Stalin. So the definition is being profoundly immoral or malevolent, in nature and causing discomfort or repulsion. So today we're going to show you why this evil man deserves to be known as evil, because he completely is very repulsive. Adolf Hitler was a German politician. He's the leader of the Nazi Party from 1933 to 1945. He initiated World War II, with the invasion of Poland, which resulted in the death of around 5.4 million Jews, 2.6 by shooting and 2.8 by gassing. So he killed more with gassing than in his actual wars. Around 11 million non-combatants were killed, which is pretty evil in our definition there, including Jews, gypsies, and homosexuals. He truly believed that non-Aryan races were evil, and he attributed his atrocities to, in his own book that he wrote, Mein Kampf, to being the work of God. And his ultimate goal was for world domination, which Stalin definitely can't say for himself, because he wasn't as evilly ambitious. He was also believed to be sexually perverse. The effects of his regime are still felt, today, with some people still emphasizing with his goals of anti-Semitism and the opinion of needing to keep Aryan bloodlines clean. Even though Stalin killed more people, overall, the way in which Hitler's victims were killed was much more brutal and was for natural evil reason. Today we hope to convey with certainty that Hitler was the more evil man, even though Stalin, having lived longer, was responsible for more deaths over a longer period of time. Mind you, Hitler and his ideals were much more dangerous to society.
Stalin, the man who succeeded Lenin, controlled an entire country. He then proceeded to starve his own people, to be, during the war, be hailed as an ally and as a hero even. And yet, the amount of evil that he showed towards his own people, not just his enemies, is what truly defines him as evil. The absolutely blatant disconcern for his own people showed through with his totalitarian government, and how he used even, at one point he destroyed an entire other country's economy basically out of spite. With our facts today, we're going to show you that he was much more evil than even Hitler was, and how well he was known.
Hitler's personal beliefs were revolting. Hitler didn't believe in homosexual rights from any nation, even Germany. Homosexuals were prosecuted, tortured, and executed. Between 5,000 and 15,000 homosexuals died during the Holocaust. Also, for the disabled, Hitler believed it was a waste of time and money to support them. He instantly put them to death.
Also, his methods of torture were extremely inhumane. Just one example was a Jewish person they would pay a fee for the ticket, and they were believing they were being allowed to leave the country, but really they were then trapped inside the train cars, put through terrible temperatures in heaters in there, and then starved to death. I just found that example especially heinous, just because it gave them hope that they were allowed to leave before that even happened. So that just really shows that he was a sick man. He wanted people to really suffer, not just die.
As a lot of people know, gassing people and killing Jews was really bad, but the most horrific thing and the most torturous thing he ever did was take experiments on people. And some of the experiments I like to talk about was experiments on twins. In concentration camps, twins were experimented on because they were similar, genetic, and made up, including injection chemicals into their eyes and sewing the twins together and hoping to be conjoined twins. Another one would be the freezing experiments, where prisoners were stripped naked, left in the freezing cold until they conducted hypothermia and died. Another one was the malaria experiment. Prisoners were infected by mosquitoes, more than half died as a result, and caused by other diseases. Another was mustard gas experiments. Prisoners were infected with mustard gas on wounds to investigate the most effective treatments of wounds caused by mustard gas.
Fourth and final point was the legacy of hate that Hitler left behind. Stalin can't really compare to that because people still remember Hitler and people still actually rejoice. People are happy to hear his name. He started an entire cult of people that believed that they're superior and that genocide was completely was okay because they felt that they needed to keep bloodlines clear. And his hateful beliefs are still represented today. And you know, they still use his flag and his ideologies. It's been, since 1945, it's been a very long time, and people are still using that as their, the signal of their beliefs. And that's just sick. That's our 4 points.
Do we start our? Okay. So, the most notable thing that Hitler is known for is concentration camps. And Stalin had a similar thing called gulags. So a gulag is a work camp, similar to concentration camps that Hitler sent Jewish people to. However, we believe that gulags were much, much worse. One of the reasons that we have is that because of competition. People were placed in an environment where they had to work and they had to do better and they had to meet certain goals to actually get food. Hitler gave everybody a certain amount of food. Of course, it was less than adequate, but it was all the same amount. And because of this, the best person who did the best, their productivity went up, and thus the gold standard, the standard that everybody should be getting, kept on going up and up and up and up until that standard was unobtainable, and people couldn't get food, and people were killing each other. They were set against each other and not just against the government that put them in there. Another reason is that because of that, it spread an entire society where people wanted to inform and tell on their neighbors that this person did this person did this, and many people were placed into the work camps more than one time, and for very long amounts of time. Lots of people in the gulags. There are stories about people escaping concentration camps, and there are stories about people escaping gulags, except normally that's from the bodies that were found after in the cold winter. And not only did they have to go through abusive and lethal guards, they also had to deal with hunger, disease, harsh elements, and heavy labor. And there was almost no hope for escape.
Estimates of how many people Stalin killed vary, but in A Gulag, a History, it's a book by Anna Applebaum, she said that the Russian records were unreliable and very incomplete. So the number that's mostly accepted by historians is 20 million. However, and I'm going to say that you guys probably came across the same number. However, this comes from Robert Conquest's book, and Robert Conquest has been deemed incorrect by the historian R.J. Hummel. Robert omitted camp deaths after 1950 and before 1936, executions from 1939 to 1953, the Ukraine famine Stalin implemented in 1932 to 1934, and many more events and dates. R.J. Hummel said in his book that 43 million people were killed by Stalin and not just 20 million. Now, Washington Holocaust Memorial Museum said that Hitler killed 15 to 20. So.
Okay, our next point is about the quality of life for the Russian people. We do admit that Hitler was terrible to the people, that didn't fit his idea of a German, mostly people who were Aryan. We can't refute that. However, life under Hitler wasn't that bad. When you see Germany before Hitler, their economy was absolute crap. People would burn money more so than even spend it. It was like $1 million for a loaf of bread. And then Hitler came along, and you saw a good economy, and you had lots and lots of prosperity. But you see kind of the same thing happen with...
Ms. Sunshine, 1 minute to prepare before we get to the open debate.
Really hope we're talking about rainbows and kittens next.
Yo, Chris, how do I do the open debate? Like, how do I do it? Like,
Yeah, you can pause it right now if you want.
Who goes first?
whoever
puts
wants.
their hand up. It's pretty easy. It's like,
Here we go.
I have a few problems with the points that you guys made, actually, when you said that Hitler was good for the economy in Germany. When really that's not true at all. You know, he did improve the economy, but it was a wartime economy, which is entirely different from a normal peacetime economy. He created industrial complexes to create tanks and stuff, but he didn't create jobs. And in the long run, he didn't help Germany at all. He created a stigma and the reputation for all Germans that they deal with even to this day. Also, you said that in the death camps, it's not something to joke about. I'm not saying that you did, but I'm just trying to clarify that when we're talking about that, trying to keep it too heavy. But the fact that you said that some escapes and that they were put back in the work camps says to me that they weren't as strict as the camps for Hitler, because people weren't released in concentration camps. They were kept there for the rest of their lives. They were either killed slowly or they were killed immediately. But there was no going back. Once you were in there, that was it. So, you know, if he gave people a chance to escape or to redeem themselves, whereas Hitler would never give people that chance because of his own ethic, ideas. Go.
We would like to clarify that when you said it was in a wartime economy, we were talking about the economy that while Hitler was in charge before the war began.
The thing about that as well is that because of the Treaty of Versailles, their economy was already much worse than it already normally was. So even bringing it up the way that he did, it was still even scarcely compared to what the economy was before World War I. So it didn't really bring up the economy, it just brought it down to a point where it wasn't nearly as bad. So.
Okay, so you're talking about the experiments that happened, right? And absolutely, they are horrible. I've read some of them. And we refute that because Hitler starved Hitler was against Jewish people, homosexuals, gypsies, those kind of things. But when it came to his own German people, they had prosperity. They were able to open up shops. They were doing just fine for themselves. Stalin, everybody except for him was an enemy. And when it comes to experiments, even the U.S. with MK Ultra and their experiments trying to mind control people, like they were an ally. They were somebody who we normally deem as good, and yet can you refute that almost all countries have those kind of evil experiments that they do on people? Stalin didn't have to experiment. He starved out his entire country. Their infrastructure was horrible. Lots of the times, although electricity was available, none of their homes even had it because Stalin didn't care enough to put any of their effort into that.
We would also like to add that there was a scorched earth policy under Stalin, and basically it was when he ordered everything in the path of advancing Germans, people, houses, the livelihoods of his people to be burned. So when you said that Hitler killed more brutally, he actually burnt, like Stalin actually burnt people and like burned houses and stuff. So there was no food and supplies for the Germans, but there's also no home for the citizens that still survived that.
And that's his own people,
Yeah.
the people who he says is his people.
Stalin was revered by his people now, though. You know, like he's been called a hero many times as one of the first Soviets to actually enforce.
Which shows
communism.
how much of his propaganda still exists today. People are disenfranchised with Hitler. Even the people, because his own soldiers way back when, lots of them didn't even know what was happening in the concentration camps. Now he has people that are following him and know exactly what's happening. But because the records now are so skewed and he changed so many truths, people don't even know today the extent of the evil that Stalin.
It is hard to differentiate, considering that both Hitler and Stalin were allies for the majority of World War II. So, considering, you can't really say that, that this German soldier killed more than a Soviet soldier because they were on the same side. He didn't label bullets.
He actually sent his own soldiers into battle during one of the big battles, I forget the name of it, but he sent his soldiers into battles without guns, without armor or anything, and he just sent them in, and almost all of them died.
That was at the beginning.
Yeah.
From 1941 to 1945, Stalin took to killing his own soldiers.
Time.
Okay, 1 minute break before we get,
This is our open debate portion? No, that was
this is the closing statements portion.
Okay, great. The closing statement we have is on this page.
Okay. Although Stalin killed more people, the actual number of fatalities is unknown due to the amount of people that Hitler was killing in just minutes. Anyone could tell someone to kill this numbers of people that is easy just to say kill and give orders. But it is another thing for someone to think very evil and give orders of how to kill the people and give crazy, brutal, insane, inhuman ideas of how exactly the killing should be. Stalin was called a psychopath and a monster, but he never had any insane ideas like Hitler did, if you compare them together. So in overall comparison, Hitler was the more inhuman person than Stalin, which makes Hitler the worst. Hitler never cared for anyone or anything. Pardon? Okay. Hitler never cared for anyone or anything, where Stalin cared for his family and actually cried when his wife died, and Stalin had a daughter, which gave him reasons to care. Hitler never had kids, and nobody knows if he even loved his wife. So not only was he getting insane ideas to how to do the killing, he was emotionless as well. He was very cold-hearted, and no one in history think like him. And so if he was alive and ruled for as long as Stalin did, he would have killed many more people and in much more brutal ways.
And just as one final point that we didn't get into in the open debate there was that you said that Hitler he helped the economy of Germany after the war, but that was the only good thing that you could even think of that Hitler would do in his entire lifetime.
Time. In regards to the question who is worse or who is more evil, Stalin or Hitler, there's a very clear answer. Stalin, who killed broader, killed longer, and killed more, is far worse a person. He is someone who pumped so much propaganda into his country that people are still unsure as to whether or not he should be praised for his war efforts, according to Wall Street Journal. This is someone who won the war for power, who wasn't overthrown but died while in that position. This is a man who brainwashed an entire country for 30 years. As you said, he's renowned as a hero. When you do a quick Google search about the worst dictators in the world, Adolf Hitler most assuredly comes up. This stigma following him is so vast, so great, that it doesn't surprise me that our opponents would argue that he is one of the worst people. However, what makes Stalin worse is that he doesn't have that stigma around him. He's an evil man who committed heinous crimes against his people and against his country, yet he is let off. He created grand purges, starved out his people, sent them to work camps, and murdered millions. He sent his people to fight with no guns and live lavishly as everyone was in poverty. Joseph Stalin was worse than Adolf Hitler because he accomplished all of that, and still some people don't know his name.